Today we'll be talking about cleaning competition small bore rifles. Here are some of the supplies that you will need. Number one is a large cleaning patches, and these are used to clean up large areas on the gun. Two is a gun cleaning solvent, specifically Hoppe's number 9. Three is the small patches, and these are chambered for 22 rifles, size for them, which this is the kind of rifle that we'll be cleaning today. Number four is Hoppe's gun oil, and it lubricates the bolt and other moving parts. Number five is a 12 gauge brass brush. Number six is a 12 gauge cloth brush. Seven is a patch jag, and it has a little needle-like protrusion on the end of it, which will poke through the patches and hold them very well. Number eight is a brass brush used to clean up the inside of the bore and get stuff that the patches cannot. And number 9 is a bore guide, and this is used to make sure the rod is centered throughout the whole bore so that you don't mess up any of the rifling or the crown at the very end of the rifle, and all these are very important for accuracy. Here are some basic gun parts and stuff like that. Number one is actually a multi-tool, and it has the size wrenches that you'll need to do everything with this gun. Two, that's called the muzzle, but specifically number two is also the crown, and this is where the bullet exits the barrel. This is very important for accuracy, so you want to keep very good care of that. Number three is the front sight, four is the rear sight. Number five is what's called the bloop tube, and this actually attaches to the very end of the gun and creates a larger eye relief, which improves accuracy. Number six is the bolt. Number seven is the cheek piece. Number eight is called the barreled action. It's that silver and then the actual barrel. Number 9 is the chamber. That's where you load the bullets into. Number 10 is where the cheek piece attaches to the gun. There's little, those black circles are actually screws that you can hand tighten, as well as 11, the butt plate mounts into there also with hand tightened screws. So when to clean, you need to clean the bloop tube, bore, and crown after every training session, no matter how many times you shot, because these are the things that get the dirtiest the quickest, and the longer you leave it in there, the greater the chance is that you'll have corrosion of your rifle. You need to do a deep clean every 2 months for a moderate training, which this is like less than 16 hours of training a week, and if you're going to do heavy training, which is more than 16 hours of training a week, you need to do this deep clean every month. And a deep clean is you do everything normal that you normally do with cleaning the rifle, but you also take apart the bolt and take apart the rifle and clean the chamber and bolt very thoroughly. So when you break down the gun, first thing you want to do is remove the sights. This is very important because you don't want solvent to get inside the sights because it will impair their ability to work. So put those off to the side, out of the way. Remove the cheek piece, butt plate, and palm blocks. If they're on the gun, remove those so it's easier to work with. Then you want to remove the bloop tube. This is important that you want to loosen the correct screws to remove the bloop tube. If you look real closely, you see 4 screws at the right side of the bloop tube. You want to loosen the 2 screws to the furthest to the right. Then you're going to want to remove the bolt. There's a little button on the side of the barreled action that removes the bolt. We'll look at that later on. So cleaning the bloop tube, you want to use a 12 gauge brush to remove any dry buildup. And when you do this, you just want to keep pushing the brush through until there's no more buildup that's being expelled. And you want to do this over a trash can to collect all of the lead and powder residue. Then you want to finish cleaning with the cloth brush until no more residue is visible. Then, if you look there, you can see the picture on the left is of a dirty bloop tube, and the picture on the right is of a clean bloop tube. You can see the difference there. Then you want to clean the crown with nylon brush first, and then you want to wipe it clean with the wet patch. You want to be very careful with the crown and very gentle with it. You can see on the left picture there's a dirty crown, and on the right picture there's a clean crown. The crown is very, very small. It's what is the last thing that actually touches the bullet on its way out, and it's very important to accuracy of your rifle. So cleaning the bore. First you want to do is insert the bore guide. And if you look down at the picture on number 1, there's that little button I was talking about where if you push that down, the bore guide can slide in and it's locked into place to it where it doesn't move, and make sure that the rod is always pushed through at the correct angle. Then you want to push through 3 wet patches, and these are the small patches, and you push them through using the Hoppe's number 9 gun solvent. Then you want to push through and pull back through 10 times with the brass brush. And every time you do this, every time you pull it all the way out, you want to go ahead and add on more solvent. You never need to put the brush down the barrel without solvent on it. Then you want to do 3 wet patches through there, just push them all the way through. And you want to do this because brushing it will have broke loose a bunch of debris, and you just want to get that out of there as quick as possible. Then run through 5 dry patches, at least 5 dry patches. If you are on your 5th dry patch and you run it through and you still see solvent on the patch, then keep running through until there's no more solvent on the patch. You want to make sure the barrel is as dry as possible. So cleaning the chamber. Then what you do here is you flip over the gun and you start to remove the action screws. This is very important because they're torqued to a specific setting and it's different for each and every gun. So if you look at the top picture, there's a little pattern. You follow the arrows when you're removing the action screws, and you only turn a quarter to a half of a turn each time until they're all the way out. You want to do this and be very patient with it because you don't want to put the action into a bind, because you could end up bending something very slightly but still enough to throw off your accuracy. Then you want to remove the clip that's holding the extractor. To get to this, after you loosen all the action screws, you go ahead and remove the stock and put it somewhere out of the way, and make sure you don't lose any of the screws. Then down at the bottom picture, number 4 is the clip. This is very important and you do not want to lose this. And then when you take it off, it kind of pops and flings somewhere sometimes, so be very careful with this. What the clip is holding on to is part number 2 is actually poking through part number 3 and all the way through the chamber, and the clip's holding on to the very bottom of that. So when you remove the clip, just take your thumb and press down on part number 2 and it'll fall out on the table. Then flip the gun over and remove the chamber plate, which is part number 3. You just put your finger in the chamber and just drag the plate backwards. It'll come out very freely. Then you want to go ahead and brush the chamber with a nylon brush. Be very gentle with this. And wipe clean the chamber and all the components, and brush the components if necessary if they're a little dirty. Then you want to make sure everything's as dry as possible again, so dry everything out. Then replace the components in the reverse order. First you put in part number 3, the chamber plate, then drop the extractor through the little notch in the chamber plate all the way through the chamber. Then holding onto the extractor with a finger, you want to flip the gun over, the barreled action over, and replace the clip. This is very hard to do with one person, so sometimes it's nice to have an extra pair of hands, like use a buddy system. So when you're cleaning the bolt, this is very important also because this is the one that has the most moving parts. So to start with this, you want to remove the bolt end cap and twist that counterclockwise. That's part number 1 down in the bottom picture, but if you look at the top picture, it is the highest, it's the very top of the bolt. Then when you're disassembling the bolt, after you've twisted off the bolt end cap, all these pieces will come out very easily. You want to make sure that you lay them out in the same order that you take them out in, so it's very easy to put them back in quickly and correctly. Brush and wipe clean all of the parts, especially number 2 and 3, because number 2 is your actual firing pin, and you want to look at this to make sure there's no wear and tear on it or anything that could indicate that it will break in your next competition. Number 3 actually does most of the rotating around the bolt. So we're going to look at this and make sure there's no buildup and no undue wear. Then you're going to start putting the parts back together. And when you do this, you oil the parts as you put them back together, especially where there's obvious wear and stuff like that. And you want to reassemble this in reverse order and just screw the top back on until it starts to click. And that is how you clean small bore competition rifles. Thanks.